The 2020 World Series really reminded me just how unappreciated speed can be in the game of baseball. Mookie Betts created so many runs out of thin air through his prowess on the base paths, and made the Tampa Bay Rays, a sound defensive team, look absolutely befuddled every time he swiped a bag. On top of this, the raw, seamless power of his swing is a thing of beauty. The term five-tool player is tossed around for a lot of prospects, but actually seeing it come to fruition through a player like Betts has left me awestruck. I'm almost positive he'll have a 40-40 season at some point in his career. He was basically engineered to. This got me thinking of other 40-40 players in MLB history and my unfamiliarity with the entirety of the short list for those who have accomplished the feat. The first was Jose Canseco in 1988 for the Goliath Oakland A's. He set career highs in home runs, RBIs, OPS, stolen bases, and won his first and only MVP. This came before his Twitter antics, of course. It's weird to think of Barry Bonds as a bag swiper, but in 1996, he took home 40 stolen bases to become the second player on the 40-40 list. This speed went away in favor of him simply clobbering every baseball in sight, but it's fun to recall how dynamic he once was. Bonds actually swiped more than 25 bags in 12 of the first 13 seasons he played in the major leagues. A young, babyface Alex Rodriguez etched his name on the lucrative group before becoming public enemy number one of the press. He did so for an up-and-coming Seattle Mariners team with loads of likable guys like Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez. And then he played his entire career in Seattle, and they made the postseason every year, and no one hated him and everyone liked him, and that was the end of the story. Yeah, that's how it happened. You don't even have to bother checking. These were the three that I knew, but for some reason I couldn't recall the fourth player on the list. And I wanted to see how many people on Twitter had the same struggle as I did, so I posed this question and asked everybody to reply honestly. Plenty of people got it by my surprise, but a lot of the responses looked like these. There were honestly a ton of good guesses for guys that I would expect to have a 40-40 season. Mike Trout is a really good guess, and he's probably got a good shot at nabbing one soon, but he didn't make the cut. The Ken Griffey Jr. answer was one I saw a lot, and I was surprised to see just how little he stole bases in his career. He only stole 184 bases in over 2,600 games in his career. One of the replies summed it up very well. That came from a Mr. Sadman Baseball. He knew all but one, and the most recent one shocked him, as it did me. By the way, go watch his newest video when you're done with this one. Link is in the top right. The last name on the list was Alfonso Soriano, one of the more underrated players in recent MLB history. He's put up historically good seasons with the New York Yankees, with plenty of unforgettable moments both in the regular season and the playoffs. But shockingly, his most storied season didn't come in pinstripes. It's weird. What about his time in Chicago? I mean, he played for some bad Cubs teams, sure, but he put up consistently good numbers pretty much every year. Not there either. The Texas Rangers? He spent a couple years there post-Yankees time when he was still an infielder, and he even recorded a 6-hit game at one point. But no, not there either. What other team has Alfonso Soriano played for? But before I tell you that, I just want to say thank you to all my new subscribers, and if you've been watching all the videos lately and haven't subscribed to the channel, please make sure you click that red button below. Only 11% of you have been subscribing to the channel in the last 28 days. The number's going up, but we can get it even higher, so please, if you enjoy the content and want to help me reach more fans, hit that button below. Dial it back to 2006 and you'll find the Washington Nationals. Alfonso Soriano put up one of the greatest seasons of all time in 2006 for an awful team in a year where the NL MVP race was more stacked than it had ever been since the turn of the century, and it probably hasn't been as stacked since. This is the story of the forgotten 40-40. So, let's start from the top. The Washington Nationals were ushered into existence in 2005 in the wake of the death of the Montreal Expos. Shout out Jeffrey Loria. Calling them bad their first season would be unfair, as they achieved a .500 record at 81-81. They were mediocre, as all expansion teams are in their first season. I mean, as most expansion teams are. They looked to improve upon themselves in 2006 with a young, up-and-coming roster including the likes of Ryan Zimmerman and Nick Johnson, as well as traveled starter Livan Hernandez. However, the depth simply wasn't there, and the need for a big move was apparent. So, the Nats shipped off a package, including Armando Galarraga of the now famous should-have-been Perfecto game, and acquired Alfonso Soriano from the Texas Rangers. The Nationals converted him from an infielder to an everyday left fielder. He would bat atop their lineup, giving them the speed and glove they desperately needed to compete. Despite heavy competition inside their own division, Soriano put up fantastic numbers for his new team. He slashed a .277 batting average, a .351 on-base percentage, and a .560 slugging percentage with a career-high 46 home runs and a career-high .911 OPS. Soriano had always been a great ball player, a former all-star and all that, but this was one of the first times he was being looked upon as a cornerstone of a lineup's offense. He was the everyday leadoff hitter, and he was relied upon to steal bases, make great plays in the field, and consistently get on base. And despite being just 30 years old in 2006, he was one
one of the oldest players on the team and looked at as sort of a leader for the lineup's offense and the general roster as a whole. The weapons alongside him, the aforementioned Zimmerman and Johnson, were also young guys, so he was looked at as a leader for them as well. But he flourished in this role, and on this day, at the end of his career, he set career highs in home runs, slugging percentage, OPS, OPS+, walks and intentional walks, and very nearly broke his high for stolen bases as well, losing out by just 2 stolen bases to his 2001 campaign with the Yankees. But as I mentioned before, the 2006 NL East had some great competition, and his efforts simply couldn't carry the Nationals to greater success. The division-winning Mets had their best roster since their 1986 championship, with Beltran, Wright, Reyes, and Moore wearing the blue and orange. Not to mention the second-place Phillies had both Ryan Howard and Chase Utley finish in the top 7 of NL MVP voting. With fierce competition, the Baby Nats sputtered, racking up just 71 wins and finishing last for the second consecutive year.
Unfortunately for the Nationals, things would get worse before they got better. Alfonso Soriano was in the last year of a contract from the Texas Rangers, hence the reason why they traded him in the first place. The Nationals didn't have nearly enough funds to bring him back, so he signed with the Cubs on a 7-year deal and left Washington after just 1 year. It was one remarkable year, and who knows how many Nationals records would be held by Alfonso Soriano now, considering the young age of the franchise. Remember the stacked NL MVP race I mentioned before? Soriano finished 6th despite this crazy year. The guy who set a landmark MLB milestone couldn't even pass 2 guys in his own division, as Miguel Cabrera finished 5th and Carlos Beltran finished 4th, both with an OPS plus over 150. Not too far ahead in the Central Division were Lance Berkman and Albert Pujols, who both had insane years. Pujols led the league with a .671 slugging percentage, a 1.102 OPS, and a 178 OPS plus, and it's widely considered that he was robbed of the 2006 NL MVP. In his illustrious career, this is considered one of his best seasons, not to mention that the Cardinals also won the World Series this year, so it's pretty confusing how he didn't come away with the award. Now, this is not to say that Ryan Howard didn't deserve it. The guy hit 58 home runs and put up nearly 150 RBIs. He had a monster season, but it's hard to argue that Pujols wasn't better than him. But, once again, this was another guy in Soriano's division. Soriano placed 6th in voting, and 3 guys in his own division placed ahead of him. The Nationals didn't lose much through their trade pursuit of getting Soriano, and they got one of the most memorable seasons in franchise history, so this isn't to say that this whole season was a waste. It's just a shame that it's not as fondly remembered as it should be. It took me a Google search to remember that Alfonso Soriano had a 40-40 season, and he almost had 2. In just his second full season in 2002, Soriano put up 41 stolen bases and 39 home runs, putting him 1 home run shy of the 4th 40-40 season in MLB history. If he got that, he would have been the only player to have 2. Let's see how his 40-40 stacks up with the other players on the list. As you might expect, Barry Bonds is the most effective player from a hitting standpoint, putting up 129 RBIs, a 188 OPS+, and an OPS above 1,000. But Soriano hit the most home runs of any 40-40 member. A-Rod swiped the most bags and had the highest batting average, and Jose Canseco doesn't lead any of them, but he was the only one to win the MVP award. You could argue that Canseco's 40-40 was the least impressive, but he's the only one that came away with an MVP award, with the other guys not even cracking the top 5. Barry Bonds is also the only Gold Glover among the group, making him the most well-rounded 40-40 member. But perhaps the most interesting thing I found was that all the teams, pretty much, that had 40-40 members on them were bad. 68 wins for Bonds' Giants, 76 for A-Rod's Mariners, and 71 for Alfonso Soriano's Nationals. The only one who had a really good team was the only one who won the MVP, Jose Canseco, who had 104 wins with the Oakland Athletics when they went to the World Series and lost to the underdog Dodgers. I'm hoping the video today can enlighten my viewers into Alfonso Soriano's crazy career, especially his 2006 season. It was really hard to find footage of him playing for the Nationals despite his crazy numbers, and it almost makes me feel like this whole season was just forgotten by MLB for some reason. Much like the old Nationals themselves. Their stadium is different, their artwork is different, their logo, their team colors, all that. It's all gone now, just like Soriano's 40-40 season. Soriano is also the only member of the 40-40 club who's not a confirmed steroid user, so in turn, he may be the first one to be elected to the Hall of Fame. Here's hoping he gets the nod. He definitely deserves it. I thought I'd end today's video by highlighting some other players who were very close to joining the club and just missed it by a few home runs or a few stolen bases. In 2002, the same year that Soriano almost got the 40-40 the first time, Vlad Guerrero of the Montreal Expos was only 1 home run short of reaching the 40-40 after achieving 39 with 40 stolen bases. In 2004, Carlos Beltran was 2 home runs shy as he hit 38 and collected 43 steals, splitting the season between the Kansas City Royals and the Houston Astros.
In 2011, Matt Kemp was 1 home run shy as he hit 39 home runs and stole 40 bases. And the most recent example is in 2019, where young Braves outfielder Ronald Acuna Jr., hey, I did a video on him, barely missed the 40-40 club after hitting 41 home runs and stealing 37 bases. He probably would have got there if he didn't get injured. Whatever you end up taking away from this video, just always remember how good Alfonso Soriano was, and the fact that his 40-40 may be the only legitimate one in MLB history. I'm the Jolly Olive, and I'll see you guys next time.